The Silent Watchers. The Velian survey ship, Starchaser, drifted silently through the remnants of what had once been Earth's orbit. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers, a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered rock, remnants of a world that had seemingly perished in a cataclysm. Captain Cyril, his compound eyes scanning the endless wreckage, felt an unfamiliar sensation creeping through his exoskeletal frame. Unease. His first officer, Commander Zara, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Fascinating. The destruction appears too precise, she observed, her long, spindly fingers manipulating the holographic controls of their scanners. There's no evidence of residual nuclear signatures or asteroid impacts consistent with planetary annihilation. Cyril's antennae twitched. You suspect something artificial. I suspect deception, Zara replied. For over 5 centuries, the Velian Imperium had catalogued the remains of extinct civilizations, piecing together the final moments of thousands of lost species. This, however, felt different. Planets rarely died cleanly. Worlds shattered by war left chaotic debris fields, and those consumed by natural disasters showed uneven orbital dispersal. But Earth's destruction had been methodical. Run a deep scan of the moon, Tyrell ordered. Focus on subsurface anomalies. If something is hidden, I want to find it. The Starchaser's sensors pulsed invisibly across the desolate lunar surface. The moon had survived Earth's demise, its cratered exterior appearing as lifeless as ever. But then the readings came back, and the results were impossible. Zara recoiled. That cannot be correct. On the main screen, vast hollow chambers and geometric tunnels filled the moon's interior. No natural celestial body should possess such structures. The Velian officers exchanged wary glances. This was no ordinary planetary fragment. Then, the ship's alarms blared. Energy spike detected. The sensor officer shrieked. Before Xyrel could respond, the lunar surface shifted. Hairline fractures rippled across its surface, forming glowing veins of molten orange. The moon trembled as colossal plates of rock and metal peeled away, not in chaotic collapse, but in deliberate, engineered segments. Beneath the false crust, something impossibly vast stirred from its slumber. Zara's breath hitched. Captain, the moon isn't a moon. Xyrel barely heard her. He was staring, transfixed, as the lunar shell continued to unfold, revealing something monstrous beneath, something that should not exist. A fleet was waking up. The Great Deception. Thousands, no, millions, of ships sat in perfect formation, their hulls adorned with an ancient but unmistakable insignia. The phoenix of Earth's united fleet. These were not ruins. These were warships, preserved, waiting, and now awakening. The Velian bridge fell into a stunned silence. This isn't an extinction, Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. It's a trap. Then, the comm systems crackled. A transmission, ancient yet precise, cut across all frequencies. A human voice, calm, unwavering, and unmistakably alive, spoke into the void. To all who bear witness, this is Admiral Elias Rains of the Earth Defense Armada. You believed us gone. That was your first mistake. The second will be underestimating what we have become. Cyril's breath caught as the first warships ignited their engines. Humanity had never perished. They had been preparing. The awakening fleet, the Velian survey ship, Starchaser, hovered in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before them. The moon, once believed to be a lifeless rock, was now shedding its false exterior, revealing the vast, slumbering power hidden within. Humanity had not perished. They had prepared. Captain Tyrell stood frozen, his compound eyes locked onto the impossibly vast armada emerging from the moon's depths. What had once been thought of as natural craters were now gaping hangars, releasing wave upon wave of massive warships, each one coming to life after half a century of silence. Their hulls gleamed with the insignia of Earth's united fleet, a defiant phoenix rising from flame. How could they have hidden this? First Officer Zara whispered, barely able to process what she was seeing. Thyrell's mandibles twitched, his mind struggling to form a coherent answer. They didn't just survive their planet's destruction, he muttered. They orchestrated the greatest deception in galactic history. A sleeping giant awakens. The Starchaser's sensors screamed as energy signatures skyrocketed. Powerful reactors roared to life, bathing the surrounding space in a soft blue glow. The warships, some as small as single-pilot fighters, others larger than any vessel the Velians had ever encountered, began their careful, methodical reawakening sequence. One by one, their engines flared, illuminating the dark void with artificial stars. Massive battlecruisers, sleek destroyers, and juggernaut-class dreadnoughts began shifting into formation, their movements precise, disciplined, rehearsed. The Velian crew watched in disbelief. "This is not the work of a desperate species clinging to survival," Zara said, voice unsteady. "This is the work of a species that never stopped fighting." The transmission from the human flagship, EDF Revenant, continued to echo across the system. "To those who believed us gone, we thank you for your patience. The enemy that forced our retreat approaches once more. You may stand with us, or stand aside. But know this, humanity has spent 50 years preparing for war." The Starchaser's comms console flashed, an incoming hail directly from the Revenant. The Velian officers exchanged uneasy glances before Xyrel gave the order. "Put it through." The view screen flickered, and suddenly, for the first time in Velian history, they were face to face with a living human. First contact with the dead. Admiral Elias Rains stood on the bridge of the Revenant, the soft hum of holographic displays casting an eerie glow across his face. His uniform, crisp and pristine, bore no sign of desperation, only readiness. He studied the Velians through sharp, calculating eyes. "You are observers," Rain said. It wasn't a question. Xyrel hesitated before responding. "We are explorers and catalogers of fallen civilizations," he admitted. "We believed humanity had perished." Rains allowed himself a small, knowing smile. "You wouldn't be the first to make that mistake." Zara, still struggling to process what she was seeing, leaned forward. "Why? Why go to such lengths? Why deceive the entire galaxy into believing your extinction?" The Admiral's expression darkened. "Because our enemy was watching." The Velian officers tensed. Xyrel's antennae flicked anxiously. "What enemy?" Rains exhaled slowly, as if weighing the burden of knowledge. 50 years ago, a force beyond anything the galaxy had seen came for us. They didn't negotiate. They didn't conquer. They consumed. The word sent a chill through Xyrel's exoskeleton. Every weapon we had, every strategy, every last desperate stand. They tore through it like paper. We realized too late, we weren't fighting for victory. We were fighting for time. The view screen shifted, revealing long-range sensor data from deep space. Xyrel's breath caught. They were coming. The doom that waits in the dark. Beyond the edge of the system, invisible to all but the most advanced scanners, distortions rippled across space-time, the telltale signs of an approaching fleet. Not just a fleet, but a devouring force, moving like a living organism through the void. The Admiral's voice was grim. "We called them the Harbingers. They do not trade. They do not conquer. They consume and assimilate every species they encounter. They are why Earth fell." The weight of the revelation pressed down on the Velian officers like an unseen force. If what Rain said was true, then this enemy was beyond anything recorded in galactic history. Zara found her voice. "And now, they return." Rains nodded. "We knew they would. That's why we made the ultimate sacrifice. Earth was never lost. It was abandoned. We withdrew, we hid, and we built the largest war machine the galaxy has ever seen." His gaze hardened. "And now, we strike first. The reckoning begins. The human fleet, fully awake, began to move as one. It was not a scattered collection of survivors. This was a war machine, fine-tuned for one purpose: revenge. The Velian crew had spent centuries documenting the ashes of fallen civilizations. For the first time, they were witnessing something unheard of. A species that had died on its own terms, only to rise again stronger than before. The screen flickered as another transmission came through. The voice this time was different, hollow, otherworldly. The Harbingers had arrived. The Velian crew shuddered as they heard the first chilling words from the approaching darkness. "We have found you at last." Kazarel and Zera exchanged a single, silent look. This was not just a battle. This was the beginning of a war that would decide the fate of the entire galaxy. And humanity was done hiding. The storm breaks. A silence heavier than gravity settled over the Velian crew as the Harbinger's words echoed through their ship. "We have found you at last." Captain Zyral's claws dug into the armrests of his command chair. A chill crawled down his spine. Something primal, something deep in his DNA screaming in warning. Even though the Velians had never encountered the Harbingers before, they felt wrong. Across the bridge of the Starchaser, the crew's antennae twitched in silent dread. They weren't the only ones affected. Even aboard the EDF Revenant, Admiral Rains remained unnaturally still. His eyes, sharp as ever, narrowed as he listened. It was a voice that didn't belong to one entity. It belonged to many. The communication wasn't sound, nor was it translated through conventional means. It was more like a whisper directly into the mind, bypassing the ears altogether. The Harbingers were speaking to them on some fundamental level, something beyond language. Rains exhaled sharply, breaking the eerie stillness. "So, it's true," he muttered. "They don't just consume bodies. They consume voices." The Velian officers turned to him in confusion, but Rains wasn't talking to them. His gaze was locked onto the vastness of space, where the shadows themselves began to move. The arrival of the unseen. Beyond the moon, at the edge of the system, space warped and bled. The stars seemed to flicker unnaturally, bending as if reality itself were struggling to maintain its form. And then they came. At first, they appeared as distortions in the void, like oil spilled across the fabric of space itself. Then the shapes solidified, forming grotesque, jagged vessels that defied conventional design. They were not ships in the traditional sense. They were alive. They pulsed with an eerie biomechanical energy, their surfaces shifting and undulating as if breathing. No two were identical, yet each carried the same sense of malice, a hunger that defied reason. Admiral Rains' jaw tightened. Fleet-wide alert. Battle formations. Now. Aboard the Revenant, alarms blared as command officers rushed to their stations. Across the newly awakened Earth fleet, thousands of ships adjusted their formations, preparing for war. The Velians, still struggling to comprehend what they were witnessing, could only watch in horrified fascination. "How many?" Fyral asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Starchaser's sensor operator swallowed hard. "Thousands. Maybe millions." Zera shuddered. "By the first nest, is that even a fleet?" Rains, hearing their words through the open comms, responded grimly. "No," he said. "That's a plague." The first strike. The Harbingers did not wait. A deep, bone-rattling hum filled the void as the first wave surged forward. They didn't move like ships. They swarmed, darting through space like a living tide, faster than physics should allow. And then, with no warning, reality itself seemed to shatter. The first attack came not as missiles or lasers, but as pure entropy. Where Harbinger vessels passed, the laws of physics broke, hulls twisted, time distorted, and matter simply ceased to exist. One of the smaller human cruisers in the Vanguard barely had time to register the attack before it crumpled like paper, its structure dissolving into nothingness. Cyrul's breath caught. "What kind of weapon?" "They're not using weapons," Rains interrupted. His fists clenched as another human vessel was torn apart in a blink, its screams of distress cut off mid-transmission, their unmaking reality itself. But humanity did not flinch. The Revenant's engines roared to full power. Return fire. Rains barked. The response was immediate. The Earth fleet opened up with everything they had. Mass accelerators launched projectiles at near-light speeds, ripping through the Harbinger swarm with the force of miniature planets. Plasma lances, railguns, and high-yield antimatter torpedoes painted the void in violent bursts of energy. The Velian crew watched in awe as humanity's hidden war machine went to work. The Harbingers writhed under the assault. Their hulls broke apart, but not like ordinary ships. They shattered into fragments that twisted and reformed, their wounds healing in real time. "They're adapting," Zera murmured in horror. Rain's face remained unreadable. "So are we." Humanity's secret weapon. A new order crackled across human comm channels. Deploy Omega Protocol. Across the battlefield, massive sections of the moon continued to peel away, revealing the final layer of Earth's deception. It wasn't just a hidden armada. It was a weapon. The moon was never a refuge. It was a trap. Suddenly, massive structures hummed to life. Planetary-scale energy projectors, built deep within the moon's hollowed core. And then, they fired. What came next was not light, not heat, not plasma. It was a frequency. A deep, resonating pulse rippled through space, a sound felt more than heard. It struck the Harbinger swarm like an earthquake through the void, sending their unnatural forms convulsing. The Harbingers screamed. Their ships froze, their bodies splintering as if suddenly caught in an invisible maelstrom of conflicting realities. Hyrule's eyes widened. "What is that?" Rains allowed himself the ghost of a smile. "A little something we picked up from the ruins of the last species they tried to wipe out." The Harbingers, for the first time, hesitated. Their writhing ships reeled back, as if uncertain, their unbreakable advance stalling for the first time. Humanity had found their weakness. The battle for the future begins. The war was far from over. But for the first time, the Harbingers had met an enemy that would not go quietly. As the battle raged, as ships exploded in bursts of light and darkness, one truth became clear. Humanity would not be erased. They had survived their own extinction. They had hidden, built, and prepared for this very moment. And now, with the full force of a reborn species behind them, the counterattack had begun.